What's up, everybody? The Setup Man coming at you today from Iowa, driving a cup car in test session, bringing you a custom setup here. I have ran a 23.5 with this setup, so let's hope I can get something close to that on video here for you. Then I can talk about how I get around Iowa, and then we will obviously go to the garage and show the setup. But first things first, let's see if I can get around here and put a decent lap here on video for you guys. This one didn't feel too bad for me talking. There was a 5, albeit barely. So with that being said, let's talk about how you get around Iowa before we go to the garage and show the setup here. Coming into turn 3, and they're very different. It seems like, I'm going to back it up here, you want to start turn 3 really early, like probably not, maybe not quite at this red sign, but not far from it. You're going to start arcing it off the wall, okay, and then you're going to lift, and at both ends I barely touch the brakes, and it seems like there is a white stripe across the track here. About there is where I am just barely touching the brake. And basically trying to let the car settle down to the bottom of the track. I want to get back down on the yellow line and kind of let it roll the corner. There are marks here on the track, or I shouldn't say the track, on the apron that lead you to pit road, okay? Right there is the first one. It's 3 marks. I want to be back in the gas about the time I'm hitting that 3 mark, or maybe just a little bit before the 3 mark. Okay, if I've hit it just perfect, and I want to be kind of close to this yellow line, but I don't want to get on it. If you get on it, you'll scrub off speed. You'll see a little smoke come off the tires. But about that 3 mark back there, I'm mashing the gas, and I am just kind of letting the car stay as low as I can get it, but it's going to drift out here, and you're going to basically follow the suggested line. You might get a little bit above it, and then you're just going to ride up here on top all the way down the front straightaway. If you have hit everything really well, you'll be doing 157, 159, somewhere in that range when you cross the start-finish line. And then there's not a great mark to use here coming into turn 1, but kind of looking at the bottom of the track, and there is that white painted stuff down there. About the time the end of that is about the time I feel like I'm starting to lift, and I'm doing the same thing here. I'm going to let it roll a little bit, then I'm just going to barely tap the brakes, okay, just barely on the brakes, and then I'm going to let it roll through the corner, try to get it to the bottom again, and then when you get to the end of the pit road wall, probably just a little bit past it, along about here or so, you want to be getting back in the gas. And again, the car is going to drift up. You're going to try to stay close to that yellow line as much as you can, but more or less following the suggested line, and then mash the gas coming down the back straightaway. That is a lap at Iowa. Iowa's a lot like Richmond, I think, in both the layout. I think it's a little bit bigger than Richmond as far as how long it takes to get around it. But it's a rhythm track. You get into a rhythm of your brake points, your lift points, your turning, and as you drive it more and more, you get more and more into a rhythm. But I think this setup's pretty good, a 22.5. When I was running a fuel run on it, it started to get a little bit loose about the last 3 laps, but it was pretty solid right up to that point. If it does get a little loose, we'll talk about some things you can do here in the garage to adjust it. But let's go to the garage and show the setup. Okay, so on this setup, and again, this is kind of a new way I am doing setups, and it seems to work better, especially on the long run. Not anything real crazy here to talk about on the bump and rebound settings, but on the front weight, I've been going much higher on the front weight, much higher on the wedge. Again, both those settings going up when it tightens the car up. I've been maxing out all the springs. The left spring, I used to run usually about 500 pounds, and on a lot of short tracks, I would soften up the right springs, but I've been starting to run this new philosophy where I'm maxing out the springs. The tire pressures are close to the defaults. I think I went up on the right sides about 2.5 pounds or so to try to help the car turn a little bit. I got pretty aggressive on the camber. If you are playing around with this and you feel like it's getting loose on you, I would try to go down 3 or 4 clicks on both these camber settings. I got pretty aggressive on the camber settings trying to get the car to turn, but if it feels like it's getting too loose for you, this is where I would start, because I feel like this is a setting where I'm kind of aggressive. I'd go down 3, 4, 5 clicks on these and it'll probably tighten the car up a little bit. And when I say down, move them both closer to 0. So if you need to go down, make this one 4.3 or 4.4, make this one 3.3, 3.4. Stiff sway bar. If you get a little bit of vibration from this, because that sway bar is really stiff and a stiff sway bar can cause some vibration, but if you get some vibration from it, go over here and go up on some of your bump settings. If it's vibrating going into the corner, go up on that right bump a little bit. If it's vibrating on exit, go up a little bit on the rebounds. And I say up 1 or 2 clicks. But I really wasn't having a lot of problems with the vibration. Some people are in their force feedback higher than I do, and I think that would give you a little bit more vibration. But again, it's a very stiff front sway bar. That's another thing I'm trying with these setups, and it seems to be yielding better results, especially on the long run. Max out the track bar. All these other things that I've talked about that are different, the high front weight, the high wedge, the high sway bars, those all tighten the car up. By going up on these track bars, that brings it back into balance. That makes the car looser, so that kind of brings it back in balance. The brake bias, I used to always run 90% brake bias any place that I had to use brakes. I'm finding out that more like 78 to 82 works better, especially as the tires wear. It used to be I'd be touching the brakes going into the corner and it was almost like the front tires locked up and the rear tires wanted to just slide around on me, but I've gone down on that. You can probably run a little bit more grill tape than this. If you go up to 45, it will get really, really close to overheating. It didn't on me, but it was close enough that I didn't like it, so I backed down to 40. The wheel lock is another thing where I'm running the things differently. I used to always run a wheel lock of like, I think 10 or 12 or something. Now I'm running a lower wheel lock, which the lower wheel lock means that when you're turning the wheel all the way to the left or all the way to the right, it just means the wheels don't turn as far left or right. It limits how far they'll turn one way or the other, and a higher wheel lock allows them to turn more in that direction. Again, if it's loose, you might want to try a 5 wheel lock. I was running, debating between a 5 and a 6. The 6 definitely helps it turn better, but again, if it's loose, or try a 5. Gearing. This I think is a 3-gear setup. I think it comes out to a 4.08. I looked at everything from I think a 405 to a 412, and they were all in a pretty tight range. So I've got a gear ratio chart on my or spreadsheet on my website. If you haven't downloaded it, you might want to download it and see which gear ratio works best for you. It's got every possible combination of gear ratios out there. But like I said, this I think comes out to a 4.08, and I was everywhere from I think a 405 to a 412, and they were really close in times. But this is what I settled on. This is kind of what helped get me that last tenth of speed that I was looking for. So that's Iowa. Like I said, it might get a little loose the last part of the run, but there's some things I've given you here, some tools to help that. If it gets loose on you during a race and you're not in test session and can't adjust it, go up on that wedge 3 or 4 clicks and try going down on that right rear tire pressure pound or 2. If it's during a race and you got to do it on pit road, so right rear tire pressure down, wedge up if it's too loose for you. That's all I got. Think this is a pretty good setup. Try it out. Give me some feedback. Let me know what you think. But I ran a 22.5 with it, which I think is pretty quick. So with that being said, I will end this by thanking you guys for watching. Thank you for all the support. Hope this turns lots of fast laps and you win lots of races with it. And have a great evening, everybody.